Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Ways and Means Chairwoman, prepared to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask Ryan Malatos to come up to the desk out front here. I can't see who else is here. Good evening. My name is Pauline Cormier. I'm the Chairwoman of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm joined by the other members of the committee. To my left, Thomas Frank Ardinger, and to my right, David Cormier, who are also members of the committee. This is C-19, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Requests the confirmation of the permanent appointment of Ryan Malatos to the position of Chief of Police for the City of Leominster. I certify that said person is qualified to perform the duties which will be required, and I make designation solely in the interest of the City of Leominster. Chief, let me be the first to welcome you here tonight. Thank you for coming down. We wanted to offer you the opportunity to introduce yourselves to not only the members of the council, but to the general public, so they can get a little bit of your background. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, a little bit about your background, your history with the department.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And thank you for the invitation. It means a lot to me and my family. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in the city of Leominster. I attended Fallbrook Elementary School, actually, and Leominster High School. After high school, I attended Westfield State University for Criminal Justice. And from there, I just always wanted to get into law enforcement. And as a high school student and a criminal justice major, you always do your best to take all the exams that you can, but you always have a certain kind of ownership in the city or town that you grew up in. And since mine is Leominster, I always strive to be here, and I was very fortunate to wind up here.
And can you tell us what year you started here in Leominster?
2002. 11/18 of 2002, actually.
So, almost happy anniversary.
Yes, thank you. 1 week shy.
And what positions have you held in the city of Leominster?
It was patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant, and I was here for captain a little over a year ago, and now acting chief.
Okay. You have family here in Leominster?
Yes, I do, behind me right here.
Would
My
you like
wife,
to-
Alana, and my two girls, Isabel and Mariah.
Welcome. Give us an idea. What do you see? What's the future of the department look like?
What I'd like to do is we need to focus on the foundation, and the foundation's the policy and procedures. And right now, we're going through the policy and procedures to make sure we have the best practices for modern-day law enforcement. Recently, in the last year, we're roughly 19% finished those. We want to strive to be at 100%, and from there, we can work towards certification and with the hopes of mass accreditation down the road.
Now, if I remember correctly, it's a long process. When people
It is
hear
a long
19%, that's actually one of the better percentages in the state, if I'm not mistaken, as far
Well,
as
that's
getting-
just redoing the policy and procedures. We're 19% through them.
Okay.
We hired Dago Law Group. They're working with us, and that's just where we are in our workflow.
Okay.
So the goal is accreditation, but there's certain steps that we have to take to get there. It's not an easy process. It's a whole new way of thinking. However, the foundations that we have, the policy and procedures, so we have to focus on those first in order to accomplish our goal.
Okay. I'm going to open up the floor to other members of my committee for questions, and then we'll open it up to the whole council. Councilor Ardinger?
What do you see as your biggest challenge in the next, I'll say, 5 years?
I'd like to work towards staying fully staffed. Work on officer retention, officer wellness. It would be very nice to be fully staffed because then we can focus on serving the needs of our community.
And as far as staffing goes, where do you stand right now?
We're hiring 4 at the moment, and we have 1 at the academy right now that graduates the first week in December. So we hope to be fully staffed at the end of next year. Would be nice.
Okay. You mentioned officer retention. Has that been a problem, or is it something that's ongoing, or
It's ongoing nationwide.
maybe nationwide, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the same job for some young adults. The draw just isn't there for whatever reason. So when you find good people, you invest in them, you always want to do your best to retain them.
Do you have any specific programs or anything that you want to implement to do that?
I'd like to focus on officer wellness. And if you keep the officers happy, you keep them professional development-wise, you always do your best to give them the schools that they want, to cater to needs of whatever their interests are within reasons, and hopefully they stay.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. David Cormier?
Thank you
Councilor
very
David
much.
Cronin?
I don't have any questions other than a comment that I don't think we could have a better candidate in front of us. I understand, you know, we changed how we can hire a police chief a few years back, and I'm glad that we were able to promote somebody from within, and I think you will be an awesome chief. So I look forward to your confirmation, and obviously if there's anything that we can ever do for you, you know where we all are.
I'm sure there will be.
And we are here to support you, so thank you very, very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thanks.
All set, Councilor?
All set, thank you.
Any other members of the council? Councilor Chauncey?
Yes, what do you do for hobbies?
For hobbies, spend time with my family. I enjoy sports. I enjoy the outdoors. That's basically it. Sports, outdoors, family, New England sports especially.
Good. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's really nice to see your family here, and I saw your parents and your sister as well, and it's really nice to see, you know, all of the representatives from the department coming down to support this as well. In 20-plus years on the force, I'd love to hear about some of the changes and how, I mean, you know, technology has changed so many things. The way that every department in the city does business has changed pretty dramatically, I would think. So if you could just talk a little bit about those changes and what you see, if you see anything, you know, kind of coming down the short-term road.
The number one change that I have to add and speak about is most likely the use of de-escalation tactics and also the use of the body cameras. The body cameras are an extremely useful tool for the officers, but also for members of the public because it provides a real-life the video of what happened. Full transparency. There's no questions, videos. You know, they paint a picture, especially for a jury. So that's probably the most change that I've seen in the 22 years. And I believe a lot of the officers love wearing them.
I would think so, because, I mean, it protects them as well.
Yeah, there's a learning curve like anything.
Yep. And
in the end, it's just, you always have that second set of eyes on you, so it's a nice option.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. You know, I'll echo some of the other comments from my fellow councilors here. I don't know that we could have, you know, a more qualified candidate, so we're happy to see you down here, or I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Councilor Bedanza?
I too am pleased with the appointment by the mayor. I noticed that the appointing authority is here. I don't think he's sat at our new desk yet. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mayor.
You know what? This department, it used police work, different, but the members of the department are completely different. They're a very I'm amazed. Their education is over the top. They can go and do anything else in their life that they want. And for some reason, we were able to capture the very people whose passion it is to protect and serve their community. They're compassionate, caring. I don't know how many times I've had to try to stop them from taking money out of the, you know, from their own pocket to help somebody that's homeless or needs a ride. Or I can't tell you how many times. It's a whole new way of thinking. You know, the chief mentioned de-escalation. They really have this, you know, as we, in the police world, we sometimes call it the sixth sense. They have this sixth sense to be able to step back and just calm the situation, assess it, and then if necessary, take action. That's with or without body cams. And that's really different from the old world of policing. And you couldn't find a better person to lead the department. You see all the other officers, men and women, that civilian and non-civilians, who are here tonight. And you know, accreditation is a big thing. Remember, you help provide the funding for the new station, and that was huge. But this is, we've been in the process of accreditation now for about 35 years, and we've had some setbacks, but this is really gonna happen now. This is the department, and these are the people that are gonna actually make it happen. We're not afraid of it all, and we weren't afraid of body cams at all. That wasn't something we were afraid of, but, we have the same concerns that you do. Chief and I talk about it all the time, speeding on our roads, noise, the same things that makes your phone ring, and those are the things that, we hope to be able to address. But again, one of the things is the constant, if we have people leave, if we can't fill positions, or we have retirements, and then it takes a year to get somebody on the street, so we're trying to come up with other methods. If we know somebody's gonna retire, to appoint somebody sooner, get them in the academy. When a lot of people went to the academy, it was 6 or 8 weeks, and then 10 weeks, and then 12. How many weeks now? 20?
Roughly 6 months.
Yeah, it's 6 months, and then training on the street. But this is really, the all-star of the department. This is a special group of people doing some wonderful things. As you know, mental illness is 1 out of every, what would you say, 1 out of every 3 calls is mental illness related, both police and fire. And the way they handle it is, between the police and fire, just amazing. And it's really a special group and a special chief. And he didn't mention his grandfather was a city councilor that sat down here. When, unfortunately, they didn't have the resources to be able to do these things. So we're in a really good, and he was also a select person.
Selectman in Bourne.
In Bourne.
Yeah.
So if you ever think that you've had enough, don't worry about it. There's more work to do in the state. So anyway, it's a good department, a good captain. We'll be making some other promotions coming up, but this is, I'm telling you, this is a special time in the city's history when it comes to law enforcement. And he's been very humble tonight about some of the things he's talked about. But he's got a wonderful family. His parents are graduates of Leominster High, class of 75, which makes this like, the bad. I know 74 was okay. I heard it was okay, 75 much better.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other councilors? Councilor Frida?
I know the mayor just talked about back when and talking about how long you've been on the force. I can remember being here when the mayor brought you down when you were going to become a sergeant. And money, I can remember money being very tight in the community, if I've got the time right. But the mayor felt so strongly that you were the right person for the job, that he felt it was important enough to bring your name forward. And it wasn't much different when you went to lieutenant. Obviously, I've known you since you were quite young. You've been friendly with my son for a long time and played soccer together, and traits you see with young children and, fairness and play and just being nice to each other. And you just continue to grow that way. And your whole personality follows that same path. I was excited about the police station, getting a new police station. I've been on as long as the mayor and trying to get the police station up and running. And it should have been such a happy place when everybody got in there. Should have been everybody working together and morale boost. And I don't think it had what it deserved. And I'm looking forward to you having that spark. And I've seen it with some of the guys. And they just a whole different mechanism now, and I wish you well. The mayor said it perfectly back then. You're the right man for the job, and I think that's going from sergeant, lieutenant, right up to where you are now. And I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you, and I'm convinced you'll do a good job. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Council.
Councilor Robbins?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for being here tonight. I really just want to echo that I really think it speaks volumes with the amount of men and women that are sitting behind you. And I really think that speaks to you as a leader. Oftentimes, I think people in your position are in a tough position, and to have the people under you standing behind you, I think really just speaks highly of the leader you already are and the way that you're going to lead the department into the future. So I'm really excited about supporting this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council.
All set, Counselor Robbins?
Yes, thank you.
Counselor Angelini?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, we had a moment in the hallway, and I just want to reiterate, as a sports fan, you obviously know what the term deep bench means. And we're blessed here in the city of Leominster with a police department with a deep bench. And clearly, I think we're all aware of the pressures that job can bring to bear on a person. And it's obvious to me that you've maintained your professionalism and love of family, a great dad, obviously, and a great husband. So you managed to keep a level head through all those trials and tribulations over the years. And I went out on a limb at our last meeting and congratulated the veterans agent before he was confirmed, and I'm going to do the same thing this evening and congratulate you. And I believe I'll be
Thank you.
batting 1,000.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All set, Counselor Angelini?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chief, I just want to add what everybody said, is there's no greater calling than to come back and serve your own community where you grew up, and to serve them in this capacity especially. So I want to say thank you as well.
Thank you. I feel
And-
very fortunate for the opportunity.
And I think that's going to conclude this portion of it. You're welcome to stay around, and perhaps I can convince the president to bump this up a little bit on the list, and we can vote on it a little bit sooner. You're welcome to stay. We hope you stay for the vote in just a little bit. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for your time and support tonight.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Next hearing is originally scheduled at 6:10 PM, City Property. Counselor Ardinger, you ready to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a public hearing on petitions 1425. Thomas Ardinger, Counselor at Large, on behalf of the petitioners below, request a sidewalk on the easterly side of Howard Street. Do we have anyone here tonight that would like to speak in favor of or against this petition? Okay. For the second time, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of petition 1425 or against petition 1425? And for the third and final time, is there anyone that would like to speak against the petition or against the petition? Hearing none, Mr. President, I declare the public hearing closed.
I don't know if any of your fellow councilors...
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
apologize. Do any of the councilors have anything they would like to add? I apologize.
That's all right.
I-
Counselor Frida?
Yeah, I brought it up at the last meeting, and I still think it needs to be said that this really doesn't belong on a council agenda. A simple request of the mayor's office could have accomplished the same thing. I would hate to see, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to vote that way, but if anybody voted against it, it wouldn't matter. I mean, we have no authority to do this. To my knowledge, anyway. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you. Any other councilors? Then I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you,
Very well.
Mr. President.
You're welcome, Counselor. Moving on to Public Safety Committee. Counselor Shalfo, are you prepared to proceed with the 1125?
Don't we have to wait until 6:30?
Oh, we're not...
Right, but it's
Yeah, I
6:20,
can't.
I think,
The clock is-
6:19.
Yeah, all right, you are correct. We are on schedule, though.
You just jinxed us.
Yeah, well, if we go by that clock, we're on time. We got a line, 11 minutes.
Right? Yep. Yep. Good evening, everyone. This is a public hearing at 6:30 of the Public Safety and Traffic Committee. My name is Sue Shalafuzef. I'm the chairperson of the committee. Council Peter Angelini is the second member of the committee, and Councilor Claire Frieder is the third member. So tonight we have a continued public hearing on petition 11-25. Claire Frieder, Councilor at Large, request on behalf of Paul and Lisa Gove of Gove Farm, establish a 25 or 30 mile per hour speed zone on Mechanic Street from the bridge at Johnny Rowe Park to the Lancaster Town line. Speed to be determined by the Leominster Traffic Department within the Police Department. So we had a public hearing on October 15th, which was continued to October 28th, continued until this evening. And I see Sergeant Robichaud. Would you like to come up, sir? He's been collecting very important data for us over the last few weeks. He's been working hard.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor.
Good. Would you like to explain to the council, and everybody has copies of the email that you sent, kind of summarizing your findings, as well as the data charts, which were really very, very helpful. So if you could just explain that and talk about that for the public here, that would be really helpful.
Thank you for distributing it. I'm sure
Yeah.
you'd agree that I can be a little verbose on my
No, it's all
emails.
good
I'm just
information.
trying to be
It's
thorough.
okay. Absolutely thorough and thoughtful. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, the benefits and the limitations of the equipment we have, it can be 24-hour eye to measure the speed and different statistics of the vehicles going by. The one big downfall it has is it only measures one lane of traffic at a time. So all these numbers, I just want to caution everyone, is based on one-way travel up the hill towards Gove's Farm from the downtown area. So I put in there a little bit about how you could easily double that number to account for the opposite lane of travel. Another thing we did was, before even putting this sign out, we have a thing called a Speed Spy. It's a small little box with a radar unit that does a very similar data collector, but this is more closer to what they use for official traffic studies and speed counts. It measures both traffic data and stuff, but for the purposes of doing apples to apples, I narrowed it down to that same single lane, and found that the numbers were fairly close to each other as far as what the Speed Spy got. It catches people when they don't know they're being measured, so that's just what people would normally do. Then the trailers being out there gave a little bit of an opportunity to have some feedback. That's when it would display their speed, the little blue lights would come on if they got a little too fast, and that gave us an opportunity to say, okay, does that actually have some feedback? And one of the things I put in the email from the data that I found was it's approximately 61% of the time we noticed that traffic would slow down when they would notice that they were speeding a little bit too much. So that shows some good data towards, hey, signs do work, feedback signs do work. That's at least one piece of the puzzle that we can say actually works. But not to bury you in statistics, in the time frame that I measured, which is approximately 2 weeks, 72,000 vehicles one direction. And out of those, the average speed, 34.1 miles an hour. So on average, out of those 72,000 vehicles, they were going at or below the speed limit. The 85% speed, which is the statistic speed that the MassDOT uses to set the speed limits for streets, that's at 39.4. So that's the high end of the average. That is probably close to what MassDOT would do, is if they did an official study and got the same data, the speed limit would be bumped back up to 40 miles an hour. So opposite of what we're trying to do here tonight.
Right.
So just letting you know, that's what the data is collecting. Let's see. On average, we got about 3.2% of the traffic was going about 10 miles an hour or over the speed limit. So 35, that gives us from 45 miles an hour up. 3.2% doesn't sound like a lot, but that was, make sure I got the right one, because I did two comparisons here. That was about 3,000 vehicles Oh, I forgot, I got updated data. I pulled the data from today, right before I came in. So that 72,000 vehicles over the weekend jumped up to 93,000.
That's one way, just going up the hill.
Yep, just one way going up the hill, and that's just from the last time I pulled the data for this email was on the 8th, I believe, and this
It
is to
was.
the 12th.
Yep.
So 4 extra days, the
Right.
traffic volume went up that much. So, but the average speed stayed the same, the 85th percent speed stayed the same, so there's a clear pattern that there are traffic. There's cars going in that way, but the majority of them are going the speed limit. Speed sign's still 61%. Let's see. Sorry if I'm a little bit all over the place
So
here.
that's fine.
So, based on that
Your
information.
boss is watching, that's all right.
Yep, I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, yeah, one more thing I wanted to bring up was Mr. Bissonette threw a couple of turning vehicles ahead signs. I attached a photo to the email to show that we at least put static signs up there in addition to the one feedback sign we have up there temporarily. I mentioned the speed spy data was very similar to the feedback data, except for the feedback actually got people to slow down a little bit. So my conclusion is, people are gonna drive the speed limit most of the time anyway, and the few that are going a little bit over the speed limit, when they get feedback, they typically slow down. It's that 3% that we're mentioning is the problem. That 3% is the one that the Gobes have the front row seat to, that they see
That's
all the
right.
time.
Right.
So that's what we need to address as far as bigger picture stuff. And I put my suggestions in here as far as, and I brought them up before, about doing more road calming measures, road diets, some landscaping, some architecture, whatever we need to, based on a traffic engineer's ideas. We can put together something and say, all right, here's things we can do to get people to subconsciously slow down, because when you're driving through that area, it's wide open.
It is.
People subconsciously will go the speed that they feel comfortable going. So if things are closed up a little bit, things are a little narrower, people subconsciously slow down. And that'll help us out a lot. Unfortunately, we're not in a position we can keep a police officer there 24/7 to catch everyone that's flying around. One thing One thing I did do, though, was I pulled up an enforcement thing. I don't have it with me, but it shows the best dates and times that we can be there to catch the most egregious speeders. So I'll be talking with the chief later on tomorrow about what we can do to start putting together, like, basically a little strike force type thing. Have a few people we might be able to dedicate to this in different areas of the city, but we'll start here to see how it works, seeing as how we have the data right in front of us. And the one other thing I think Councilor Frieda mentioned how Leominster's adopted the 9017C so that you can adjust speed limits and set 25-mile-an-hour zones. And just based on the little bit of research I did on the MassDOT websites, it looks like that they're only for thickly settled and business districts,
Right.
which would be a good chunk of Leominster, the residential areas, the downtown business areas. And just with my Google Maps type measuring, it looks like the most we could probably do is from where Go Farm is to the last house before we hit the Lancaster line, just barely makes the statutory minimum. And then the whole hill area going down to Johnny Appleseed, I don't believe that would qualify as is. So I'm not sure if that would work. And also, the sign, the roadway is currently posted with the black and white sign, which to us means it's a 90/18 special speed zone. Somebody had to make a ruling on that to say, all right, this is the speed limit. Because statutorily, under the basic 9017 rule, that's a 40-mile-an-hour road. So to drop it to 35, someone had to have done a speed study to set the road at 35, or long before my tenure, someone might have just thrown up a couple of signs and called it a day. I can't find the data that says that that was officially adopted or not. I have to contact MassDOT to find that out. But if we were to rescind that 35-mile-an-hour zone and not able to make it something different, it would default to a 40-mile-an-hour zone, be going in the wrong direction. So that's why I'm just advising a little bit of caution before we go too far down this road and end up doing something that will be really hard to reverse.
Right, and that, so we have, the city council has, which have made changes to certain streets, Burge Ave, Beth Ave, and Manchester Street.
Yes.
All thickly settled areas, all
Yes.
at 25 miles an hour. So, understanding that that area is not thickly settled, my question, I guess my last question to you was about a business zone that was, I think, raised by the planning director at one of our prior public hearings. So, because Gold Farm is a business, you know, the fields on both sides of the road, those are part of their business, and then the farm stand. So, that would be one way that we might be able to lower the speed limit there, by qualifying that as a business zone.
I would have to see what the definition of business zone is, if they have a statutory definition of it, if it means so many businesses within a certain period of time, if it needs to be improved with sidewalks, things of that nature, if there has to be a pedestrian count. There's a million little details that could be in there that I'm not aware of currently, that I'll have to do some research on. I see where you're going. It
Yeah.
sounds like a great idea. The Gobes do cross the road at multiple points with their tractors, so that whole area could be considered part of their business. I agree with you there. I just have to see if the state, the way the law is written, if that could be applied.
Okay, great, thank you. So in the kind of near term, would your recommendation be to get a more permanent feedback sign? There's, given how it's really performing, I think, very well. 62% of people speeding that slow down. I mean, that's huge.
Yes, I think that would be a prudent and cost-effective. Recently, when we moved from the old station to the new, I was able to, we had to move everything out of the building, obviously, and during that process, I did find we had some of those feedback signs set aside. When we bought these traffic trailers, that made some of our speed signs that we had now obsolete. Those could be repurposed. So I believe we have at least one or two that we could surplus potentially. I'd have to speak with the chief, obviously, the DPW, to see if that's something that could be utilized. If not, there's some commercial grade versions. I believe you sent me a link
A solar
earlier
one,
today.
right.
Yeah, there are solar ones. There are ones that are powered from telephone poles or standalone poles. There's many different options. Obviously, being cognizant of the city's money, if it's already spent on a sign and we don't have a home for it, let's give it a
Put it
home.
up.
So
Right.
I'm all for that if we can get it to work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will go now to the committee. Councilor Angelini, do you have any questions for the sergeant?
I do, Madam Chair, thank you. Good evening, Sergeant Rubischard. It's a
Evening,
pleasure to
Counselor.
see you again.
You
And
as well,
Thank you
sir.
for your diligence in this data. I don't want to belabor the point, but, and just give me 1 second, because we barraged with this paperwork.
Again, I apologize. My brief emails are still very long.
That's okay, no, you did a great job of condensing it in your presentation. But when I look, we had, on this page, it has some of the data. On average, 3.2% of traffic exceeded the violation limit. So if you go down to where it says fifth, that nearly 600 vehicles were measured between 50 and 75 miles per hour. This occurred sporadically through the day, but would be significant enough to attract the attention of other drivers and residents who would notice the excessive speeding. Is this something that you would classify as like atypical of sort of a rural sort of stretch of road where people might exceed the speed limit? Or is this a circumstance where you see that kind of 50 to 75 and a 35 is in those numbers? So out of what, 90,000 vehicles or something, 600, is that sort of a typical number?
It's high.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that's a high number. In the grand scheme of things, I think that's why I did the two different standards here. I did speed limit plus 10, that's the standard, that would be 35 to 45.
Yeah.
Then I did one at 15 miles an hour, which a lot of our officers would prefer to enforce at a 15-mile-an-hour limit than a 10. So that puts the speed limit of a violation at over 50 miles an hour. That dropped to 1% from 3.6%. So that goes to show that the majority of the speeders in the area are in that extra 5%. So the 35 to 45, then the 45 to 50. Once you get over 50 miles an hour, it's very rare. Those are the exceptions. Those are the exceptions that everyone sees. You're standing outside, you're having conversation, all of a sudden you hear one car go, "Meow." Oh my God, they're flying. You don't notice the other 700 cars that went before and after it. You notice that one that was flying. That's why I pointed that out to you. Those are the ones that I can get the dates, the times, I can, down to the minute as to when those cars went by. I just can't identify the individual car.
Sure.
Those are the people that I want to speak with the chief about getting some sort of a little task force to say, okay, if I notice at 2 in the morning, there's 3 or 4 cars doing 60, 70 miles an hour down the road, maybe we want to put a traffic car in that area around that time, because now we've kind of narrowed it down. I'm not sitting there waiting for 2 hours, waiting for this guy to come by. I can narrow it down to an hour. I can narrow it down to half an hour if I have to. So that's kind of where we're going. The other part, too, is we can't discount the fact that as police officers, sometimes we have to get somewhere quick. Some of those cars may be police officers. Some of those cars might be fire trucks, ambulances, other emergency personnel going up to Orchard Hill Park or something. Going a little faster than they should be, but, you know, I can't verify that information. I'm just saying anecdotally, when we pulled this data in the past and correlated it with some of our response times, sometimes they line up.
Interesting. It's something I would have never thought, so I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
I don't believe our guys would be doing 75 miles an hour up the hill,
Blame the
but
fire
depending on the
department.
call, it could happen.
All right. Thank you very much, Sergeant.
You're welcome.
Thank
Yes.
you, Madam Chair.
You all
Thank
set?
you.
Council Frida?
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant, for all the hard work. I think what started this whole conversation clearly was the goes through the summer, you know, seeing the near misses, seeing the hits in front of their place. And I think, you know, when the chief said at one point they have, they're the eyes that are there. The rest of us are trying to put the pieces together. But I think that in the conversation, following this and all the work that you've done, I think it brought on the light that there is some issues up there, and especially when people started telling me that they were having trouble getting off of 190 in the morning, and myself included. That one day I did it, 190 onto Route 2 is almost impossible. So they started going down Mechanic Street to go to the Rotary in Lancaster and get on from Route 70 onto Route 2 that way. So if that's going to become a habit, because I went a couple of times after that. I parked down the bottom of Mechanic Street in the end in Lancaster to watch how many people were there in the morning or coming home at night. And it's remarkable how many people are using Mechanic Street instead of going Route 2 to 190, just because it's so backed up. So I think if anything, it gave us a whole new light of something else that was happening that we weren't really aware of. At least I wasn't. And even talking to Tom Bizen at DPW, yeah, my wife does that all the time. She works in Littleton. She takes that road every day because it's easier. She can't get onto Route 2. So I think those are happening. And, you know, the people there have been gradually trying to get something done, whether it be down by the Johnny Rowe Park or up at the top. And I think it was just a sense of frustration of all the people together, you know, talking about it and just saying, gee, they were all worried about somebody getting seriously hurt or killed up there. That was their whole goal. It wasn't because they had a business and was trying to make it easier. They were truly concerned about what could happen. Whatever we can try ahead of time. I mean, I think the signage is a great idea. I think we have the materials. It's not costing us anything to do that and get started that way. We have the possibility of 25 mile an hour, or looking at, as Mr. Souza said the last time, about the possibility of a business district. You know, we've got time to look at those things. But, you know, I think everybody in that area would be fine with the possibility of trying something at least, you know, that they've been heard and there's an attempt, and you've obviously done a lot of work, and I appreciate that. That was the intent of the petition. So I appreciate everything you've done, and whatever we can do, whatever your recommendations are, we'll go that way with it and have it be the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Certainly.
If
Go
I
ahead,
may,
Sergeant. Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Councilor Frida, jog my memory a little bit. Bringing up the whole thing about how Mechanic Street is, the traffic is going up due to outside influences. Roads are organic. Improvements other places make people want to go certain routes and not go other routes. That reminded me of Harvard Street. Harvard at
Right.
Prospect. I'm
Yep.
sure you'll remember that.
Yes, I
Harvard at
do.
Prospect had a nice little curve. You could just come
Fly.
right off and buzz along, and there wasn't much down at the other end, so no one had a reason to. Then Orchard Hill Park came, and it turned into truck traffic and everything under the sun. So then they wanted to make the truck traffic go further up the road a little ways. They made it inconvenient to make that turn. So the city spent some money, made that turn to 90 degree instead of that nice little curve. One little change cut out a lot of the problem, I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing, I'm not saying that's exactly what we need to do on Mechanic Street,
Right.
but something along those ideas, something a little bit more creative to kind of let people know, hey, go where the most of the traffic is. If you have business on Mechanic Street, by all means, take it. But realize it's rural, residential,
Right.
that sort of thing.
And, you just made me think of something too. The landfill is a prime spot. We're always hearing that all the time. Oh, what could go there? What's the possibility of something going there? If that has something that brings a lot of traffic to it, that's another whole area on the same street. So, I mean, I don't think we're starting too early, I guess is what I'm saying, on trying to look at the problem and
Absolutely.
figure out something. And I think you got the great beginning to, we know that there's an issue, so we know we can deal with it.
Thank you, Council. Council Cormier?
Yeah, thank you. I was, reviewing this report here as well, and a few of these speeds are really excessive. 75 in the, just after between midnight and 1 o'clock, 72 at 11 o'clock at night. There was even one at the 7 o'clock hour in the morning, 72. And I understand, that there's, you talk about sign effectiveness and what 62% of the cars slow down when they see the speed. You can't help but wonder if the sign wasn't there, that some of these people wouldn't be doing those excessive speeds because it could be some 18-year-old kid thinking that they're funny and they want to see how high they can make the sign go, as well. I can't even imagine going up there at those speeds. By the time you get to the top of that hill, I mean, you must be ready to go airborne. You definitely feel weightlessness in that car when you get to the top. And so, you just, the thing is this, there has to be some enforcement, and I would just ask you to, get some data and see when the last time was that there was actually an officer there, how many tickets were written, because you can put all the signs you want. If you think that someone who's going 75 miles an hour up there is going to care what a sign says, it's just not going to happen. So, those are the types of things that need to be, brought under control, and that's where we need that data to. There's probably one person or two people that are doing that, and I mean, it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. So, but I definitely appreciate all this data and stuff, and looking forward to seeing, where we can go further with this. But if you can give us some data, I'd be curious to see over the past couple of years if any tickets were actually written up there.
Well, we do directed patrols there, so we have the logs of the officers showing up there. I haven't pulled the ticket logs to see how many citations were written because of that. This is still fairly new. These traffic trailers that we purchased, I'm still learning the process and how to pull the reports. We haven't built a procedure on how to disseminate them yet, like give them to the officers for roll call, give them to certain, like I've been working closely with our traffic officer, but he's one man out there, and I think he just broke the 1,000 citation mark this year. And he's on pace to make 1,200 citations this year. That's his goal. So, but he's only one man. He's only one officer. As far as, that's one of the discussions we have to have with the chief later about some sort of a small group or a task force or something that we can do to get people to be more in that area, because we also have to be mindful of call volume. We still have domestics, we still have alarms, we still have every other call that comes in, and that takes priority. So an officer sitting on the side of the road, having been that officer for most of my career, actually, you sit on the side of the road and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be here for 1 hour. 10 minutes later, I have a shoplifting, I have to leave. I finally get that report done, I come back, all right, I'll be here for an hour. 50 minutes later, hey, can you go handle this loud noise complaint? And you keep getting pulled off. And unfortunately, that's just the reality with the staffing levels we have. We can't dedicate as many people as we would like to this problem. That's why I'm trying to emphasize a little bit of a two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Some architecture, some speed planning, and obviously the enforcement to go along with it, but the targeted enforcement with the data. Once we get a program in place where I can say, okay, like you said, 1 a.m., we've got one guy that does 70 miles an hour on his way to work. Let's see if we can have a nice conversation with him. We may not get him the first few nights, but we'll get him eventually, as long as we are able to do so and dedicate some manpower to that one particular problem.
Thank you
all
very
set?
much, Madam Chair. Yes, thank
Anybody
you.
else on the council have questions for Sergeant Robichaud? I'm really impressed with the data, because what it's done is really prove the anecdotal, the stories that, folks that work at Gold Farm, have told us about. They would see people that were speeding or looking like they were going quickly up the hill. When they saw the sign, they did slow down, and that's what they were seeing, from their work space. So, 600 of these cars going between 50 and 75 miles an hour, 62% of those slowed down. I think that's huge. So the sign works, from my perspective, and I think it's a really helpful, very important first step. So I guess in terms of this particular petition, I think I'll leave the public hearing open and hopefully hear back from you, Sergeant, about, is it possible once you, have a conversation within the department about, can we get a permanent feedback sign up there? Are there other kind of traffic calming ideas that would work in that area, the rural area? And then third, the statutory business, business definition, if that would be something that would be appropriate in that area. That would be helpful as well, then we could, change the speed limit. So would you be able to think about those things and then give us your feedback?
Yes, ma'am, I've got my homework.
Thank you. Okay. All right, look, thank you very much. And I don't want to I want to make sure that you understand how much we appreciate all of this information, because it really paints a picture with numbers that I think, is very, very helpful. So thank you, Sergeant.
From my standpoint,
Mhm.
we get complaints all the time, about everyone thinks speeding's out of control in their neighborhoods. It's nice to be able to have the data to pull up to say, the fastest car in your neighborhood was 28 miles an hour. Now we have the data that says the other way.
Right.
It says, no, there is a speeding problem, okay? We're not biased. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from saying, hey, you have a speeding problem. It's nice when we can independently say,
Yeah.
this is what we have. So thank you for allowing us to buy these speed trailers, and then that's why we're able to provide you with this data.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so before we move on from the public hearing, I need to go to the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to petition 11-25? Please come up to the microphone, sir.
John Gove, 925 Mechanic Street. We mentioned the anecdotal stuff about seeing cars slow down with this sign, so, thank you again for the sign. It has been working, and we continue to see that. I was doing some traveling in the past couple weeks, and it's one of those things, once you mention, you're looking at buying a certain car, you see that car on the road all the time. I'm seeing a lot of these radar signs, and there seem to be a lot of options and a lot of different ways that different towns are approaching it. So like you said, let's get creative and find a way to solve that problem. There's so many different types of these solar radar signs giving you different feedback, the positive ones that say thank you when you aren't speeding and things like that. So yeah, I appreciate all the resources you've put into this, because you've also said that there's a lot more than one street in Leominster. So being able to have these resources in this one area, especially when we've also seen the problems further on down the hill, because, you know, it's not just Gove Farm, it's Johnny Rowe Park and going down to Cumberland Farms. And, you know, you were having problems with the downtown area too. So there's a lot going on with this one street, so as creative as we can get, it'll be hopefully a problem we can solve before we have another slap in the face of, hey, this happened because, you know, someone was a little out of control. So I'm glad that it's not just a flash in the pan, and we're continuing to put some energy into this.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Councilor Shalfo, it's, Zephyr, it's
Right.
7 o'clock, so we're going to begin the meeting, and then we'll go into recess if you'd like to
come back.
wrap it up.
Certainly.
Okay. Councilor at large, Frida, mentioned the nice idea of having Chief Malatis's children come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If girls would like to stand right here, if you don't mind, in the well of the council, you can
Just
lead us.
so we know that they are brownies too, so they're well
All
on their way.
right, so they're trained.
They know how to do this.
Parents can come up too if they like. Might make them more comfortable. Set? Great job. Thank you. We'll now take the roll call of the councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier,
Present?
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Ottinger,
Present.
Councilor Tossi,
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Present.
Councilor Robbins.
Present.
Councilor Frida,
Present.
and I'm present. All 9 councilors are in attendance.
You missed one.
Forget the invisible man.
Oh, sorry.
Invisible man is
Invisible
present.
man. All right. We have no records for approval this evening, apparently.
Make a motion for a recess?
Have a second? All in favor? Please recognize usual manner. All right, we're in recess. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Yep, thank you very much. So, again, for a second time, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to petition 11-25? And for a third and final time, is there anybody who'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to petition 11-25? Okay. So, seeing no one in the public wanting to comment further, my recommendation at this point would be to keep the public hearing open.
Okay, so later on in the agenda, we'll set a
Yeah,
date.
we'll set a time.
All right. Very well. Now I'm going to conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed. Actually, no, I'm not. We're going to take up 1025, which is legal affairs. So, Councilor Angelini, I seem to be skipping over you. Complete disregard this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been treated worse. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Peter Angelini, Chair. I'm joined by the other 2 members of Legal Affairs, Ward 1 Councilor Robert Tossi and Ward 2 Councilor Pauline Cormier. This is petition 10-25, Peter A. Campobasso, Esquire, on behalf of 5 SAC Self-Storage Corporation, request to amend Section 22-17, underlying districts table of uses of the Leominster zoning ordinance. Under the business uses table of uses in the multi-use 1, MU1, underlying zoning district, and change the self-storage facility use from N, no, not required, N, no, not allowed, to either Y, allowed by right, or SPPB, Planning Board Special Permit required. According to the Leominster zoning ordinance, self-storage is categorized as a business use, but is only allowed in the industrial zoning district. This was first on our agenda on September 23rd. Is Mr. Attorney Campobasso, would you like to have a seat at the, I have a hot seat?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Members of the council, Peter Campobasso, 3 Park Street, Leominster, Mass. I have with me tonight Matthew Pepin and Josh Alexander, both of U-Haul Self-Storage. The request is to, essentially, it's a pretty simple request. In the zoning ordinance, under the table of uses chart, some of the materials that I did forward to the councils last week, I think if you were to look at the zoning ordinance and you looked at the chart of the table of uses across the top, you'd see all the different zoning districts, and on the left-hand column, you'd see the different uses. And when you look under the current table, when you get to self-storage facility, it is not allowed in all of the districts except industrial. Self-storage is a business use. It's defined under the ordinance as self-storage. It's a building or a group of buildings consisting of separate self-contained units that are leased or rented to private individuals for self-storage of personal property, not industrial property. And based on that, and based on the purpose of the mixed-use districts, mixed-use districts are designed to promote and coordinate the development of industrial business and reuse of old abandoned buildings that were in previously zoned industrial districts. This particular parcel was previously zoned industrial, and when it was changed over, it just was always allowed in the industrial zone, and it must have just, I don't know if it was overlooked or if it was intended that way. But I think when you look at the type of facility that self-storage properties now are, it's more of a professional building. It's not what we're used to seeing, the old storage type sheds where people would drive and they'd pull their vehicle up outside and open up the door and go into their unit. The buildings are 2, 3, 4 stories. It's accessed by going inside the building to small cubicles. They're all different sizes. They could be 5 by 5, 5 by 10, and larger. In order for people to access the buildings, it's all security, it's coded. Everybody has a pass code to get in. So the building type in the business model itself has changed considerably. And I think when you look at the purpose of industrial districts, the purpose is for research and development and industrial uses. So this type of self-storage use for household personal property is really not consistent with an industrial use, probably be more consistent with a commercial or a business use. And I think the change that's being requested is a simple request, pretty straightforward, to allow this type of business use in this mixed-use 1 district, zoning district. We did meet with the planning board. My petition requested that the council either, if this was something that were considered, have it be a use, a permitted use allowed by right, or have it be a use that's required. In order to use it, you have to go before the planning board and get a special permit. And I believe when we were at the planning board public hearing, that was the sentiment of the planning board. So we would not be opposed to having it be a use that needs a special permit before the planning board.
Could I ask you a couple of questions at this
Absolutely.
point? You finished your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. I think you partially answered one of my questions, which was, when was this land purchased by your client? Do you have?
When was it purchased?
More than 2 years ago, probably 2.5 years ago.
I was going to say 3 years ago.
So the zoning at the time of the purchase was as it is now,
Correct.
obviously?
Yes.
Okay. I noted in the material supporting documents that you provided us on Friday that you talked about truck rental. And these are vehicles that you see normally, these U-Haul box trucks?
It's more of the van-type vehicle that individuals would rent to go back and forth, not necessarily the big commercial trailers, tractor trailers.
So in essence, it's a storage facility and a vehicle rental. So it's sort of a
Correct.
dual use.
Correct.
So how many, I mean, you must have an idea, I'm not going to ask you to be
No?
perfect, but an estimate of the number of vehicle rentals per day. How many vehicles entering and exiting the site daily?
Just to correct that, we will not be renting trucks at that Harvard Street location that we're talking about today. The existing rental depot is across the street at 438 Harvard? Yeah, 438 Harvard Street, so it wouldn't be on this new site, it would be strictly self-storage.
So currently at 438, you're just doing rentals and no storage?
We have storage at 438 also, but that's where the truck rental office is.
Okay. So 438 zone industrial? I'm just trying to get a grasp for this operation.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
All right. We did have a council, I know you attended our last meeting, even though you weren't on the agenda, and we had an at-large councilor ask for a plan. I think she's looking for some kind of a site plan, which would maybe show the orientation. I'm sure she'll speak for herself at some point, but I just was wondering if that is available this evening for review.
We haven't really, the applicants haven't got that far. We're in the preliminary planning stages, and depending on which way they go, I don't think that they have an actual site plan or a conceptual site plan that shows a facility.
Okay. All right, well, at this time, I think I'll go to members of my committee. Councilor Robert Tossi, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. So you do have truck rental down there right now, right? As you
Yes,
get to the bottom.
the existing facility does, yes.
Okay, and then you're looking to put this storage across the street.
Correct.
Okay, I have a hard time picturing where that is. Is
Doggy
that,
daycare?
oh, the doggy,
Yeah.
okay, I got you,
That
yeah.
site right there. It's,
That building's gonna fall down. That building's gonna fall down soon.
Yes, it's approximately 3 acres right there.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All set,
Yeah,
Councilor?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
So I understand you don't have a conceptual site plan, but you must have an idea of what you want it to look like. Give us an idea of what you're looking to do that. Is it simply this structure like the other ones that we see, just completely storage units? Is there going to be any intention to move any of the rental, the big trucks over there? You must have a wish list of what you could put there to give us an idea on that.
In all honesty, our wish list to keep the truck rentals as far away from that as possible. There's enough congestion right there at that intersection anyway.
Okay.
It's just gonna be self-storage. There'll be some interior load and unload so the customer can get out of the elements. And everything will be monitored through, video cameras from across the street so we can keep an eye on what's going on in there.
Okay, what about a driveway? One driveway in, one out?
That's been our struggle so far. That's why we haven't completed the site plan yet. We have National Grid that's there and also the train. So there's some setbacks and easements right there that we're working through. But ideally, we'd like, keep the existing curb cut and that one. And there's 2 curb cuts on there to utilize both of them.
Okay.
One on each side of the building.
Because that is a difficult area there, because people are taking that turn.
Agreed.
They're either going to the left to get back on the highway, or they're going to take that right. So that's going to be a kind of a difficult corner as far as your driveways.
I envision where the existing driveway is would be the exit to the facility with the right hand only to get, to
Okay.
go through to that situation.
Okay. And strictly just storage units, that's it, with an indoor component?
Correct. Restrooms, that-
Okay. Okay. Do you have any issue over there, and I'm just throwing this out there, is there any issue of wetlands in that area as it goes, you said 3 acres, so my thought process is a little bit further down.
Correct, yeah. Closer to the train tracks, further into the property, there's, I believe, 150-foot setback right there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Counselor. Let me go to members of the council. Counselor Bonanza, I did see your hand up.
Yeah, how many units do you anticipate in this structure if this is permitted?
I would say 600.
And how many new jobs would this building create? After the construction, I mean, once it's running.
Not to hold me to a number, but I would say at least 10 more on site between the whole complex, and that doesn't include the moving help that comes in and assist the customers, delivery drivers and stuff like that that actually work for us.
What would the 10 people be doing? Can you give me an idea what those jobs would be like?
We'd have multiple housekeepers, custodians throughout the facility. Right now, the Leominster store is considered a small store in our scope of mind. We'd be expanding it, so we'd be able to add more. It would give us the ability to add an assistant manager there, a full-time storage manager in the facility, and then several moonlighters.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Counselor Frida, please, and I'll go to you, Counselor, next. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, obviously, I was one that asked for the plan, because I think that's as the Ward 2 counselor brought up, that's a corner that's pretty intense when people are coming and going out of the mall. My biggest concern is that if we change the zoning, and we seem to forget sometime, we change the zoning for this one particular area in this district, then that's going to change for every other zone in this category throughout the city. And if we want to put storage facilities in some of the mixed-use districts, I'm not exactly a fan of that. It's not the most attractive building. And you've got this storage across the street, and I think there is some area left. I mean, I guess I'm not sure, are you talking about 2-story building? You're talking about 4-story building? Talking about a big brick building? I guess that's kind of the conceptual
If I may, I think
Sure.
if the informational pamphlet that we submitted.
Yeah,
I think if you thumb through that, you can see what the typical self-storage floor plan would look like, I believe on page 4. And then I think if you go to page 5 and 6,
my pages aren't numbered, but what's the,
it would just be the 4th page and the 5th page. You can see some different pictures of what.
right, so what's the
facilities.
community? There's the names of the communities, what are we?
I don't have it in front of me, but one of them we're doing in Somerville, Mass. That's is probably the closest one to here. We recently completed one in Nashville, New Hampshire.
So that's what, 4 stories? 3, 4?
3 stories typically, sometimes 4, depending on fire code and whatnot, cost. But it's a real professional building, it looks like.
Yeah, it is very professional, but I don't know if that fits in that corner to me. I don't know.
And to your other point, if I may, the other mixed-use districts in the city, there's one that is off of Old Mill Road, Jungle Road, way up in the back. I'm not even sure that site has roadway access, but that's one of the districts. To your point, some of the other areas that could potentially see it is the Lancaster, Elm Hill Ave, Litchfield Street, where the old Bordens used to be. That's another mixed use. There's, I call it one, but it's 2 districts on Hamilton Street and Nashua Street. It runs along that strip where Crawford Street goes. It's sort of dissected by that little residential zone that's in the middle, but that's another one of the big mixed-use districts. The Harvard Street is mixed use. The Mechanic Street, Leominster Connector, where the Fidelity Bank building is, that's mixed use. And there's a small section on Central Street, where the electrical building is, the supply store is. So those are the other districts. If you look at the zoning map, the MU districts really are not that big or large of areas, but there are other sections in the city. And that was one of the points that we discussed with the planning board, where we felt it was more appropriate that it be a special permit type use versus allowed by right.
Are you affiliated with the U-Haul on Central Street as well?
Yes, we are.
Probably not something I should bring up, but I've been here a long time. And I can remember going back many years when we had a major issue, environmental issue on Bascom Street. And the quickest and least expensive way to fix that would have been help from U-Haul. And it was absolutely refused to help the city with it. Granted, it has nothing to do with your project now, but it's something about U-Haul that I haven't forgotten, because I was involved back then. And I'm going back over 20 years, I get it, but it's still, it would have been a lot easier if we had some help and cooperation back then. And I just, there's a need, you already have, the storage facilities across the street. And I don't know, that size building in that spot, to me, is just overwhelming. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up on the Central Street part of your business, would you be closing that and moving everything to this new building, or would you have the 3 locations, basically?
The 3 locations.
You'd have 3 locations, okay. Can you tell me what your, the square footage would be for this new proposed building? Do you know what that is?
Not off the top of my head, but it was a variance-free type of plan, so whatever's allowed by right.
I'm just curious as to how that compares to what's there, the doggy daycare building that's there. I don't know offhand what the square footage is, but I'm curious as to how much, how they would compare the new building to what's there.
So as I've said, in the discussions that we've had to date,
Mm-hmm.
There has not really been discussion or much action towards some type of a conceptual plan with a building. Because we're more focused on, correct, we have to show something.
Right.
But we're not even sure if the type of use that we're asking for is going to be allowed. So we're trying to present this to the council more on it's more of a business type use that we're asking to be allowed in what's considered a business district. Now, any type of building that's proposed, whether it be 1-story, 2-story, or 5 stories, everything would have to comply with the zoning bylaw, and it would have to go before the planning board for site plan approval and special permit approval. So all of the issues that you're raising now would have to be addressed before the planning board through a proper process. The request of the council is to allow this type of use in this district. So we're more focused on trying to get the use allowed in the district versus here's the building we want to put there, because that hasn't really been developed or come to fruition. So it's kind of hard to answer specific questions unless they can relate to another building that they built in a different community similar to this. I don't really have that information.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the gentlemen, you had talked about the size and the scope, and did you mention 600 units in that building? I thought that's the number I heard.
If I had to guess, that's probably sounds about right.
Okay.
Again, we don't have anything on paper yet, but
Okay.
that sounds about right.
All righty. Okay, thank you. I'm good for now.
Councilor Robbins, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of more logistical questions that, even if related to another building, would give us some sort of idea. Access hours, can people come and go 24/7 to access their storage unit, or are there set kind of business hours?
Set business hours, 7 to 7, 7 a.m. to 7 p. Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5 on Sunday.
Okay, and then just being a tight area, the impact on traffic, how many cars are going to be coming and going? Again, obviously, you can't tell us for sure with this specific unit, but
I don't know if Peter has it on hand, but what we've noticed so far is like far less than like a Dunkin's or a Starbucks or anything like that. Typically, people move into their storage once, and then they come back with their own vehicle to make, pick up a few items, and then they move out the second time, so it's, I don't know if we have that.
So in the information that we submitted is a traffic study that has a use comparison on similar facilities. A typical U-Haul center during the weekday would generate about 31 trips per day, and on the weekends, 53 trips per day for this type of a facility.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Any of the councilors have any questions? Councilor Arnja.
Pardon me, as I listen to this, I have some real concerns about the traffic, even though you say it's going to be minimum according to your numbers here. But you're going to be having people coming in and out of there at some of the worst times of the day, I would expect. That intersection is a horrendous area right now, getting in and out of it sometimes. The other question I have is, you have a facility across the street. Is there any way that you could incorporate something like this into the existing location without adding additional space?
We've utilized every inch of property we can on that site.
You have?
Yeah, there's no room for expansion.
Okay, all right. I'm beginning to think I should have bought stock in storage units a long time ago, because you have 600 more units. That's a lot. Do you have any plans for any other expansion in the area, just off the top of your head?
Not in Leominster, no.
Not in Leominster, in Lancaster, possibly?
Yeah, we have plans for the old Roll on America.
Same type of facility?
Yes.
Same? Wow.
More of a warehouse type for a different product. It's a warehouse that we'd be putting there, ideally.
Okay.
We're still going through land use, obviously.
Okay. But this building is not going to have a lot of impact as far as employment in Leominster. We're not going to hire a bunch of people to be able to increase our employment. And as I understand it, the revenue generated from a storage unit facility is very minimal. And so I have some concerns about that too, is what is the trade-offs that we're making in order to get a minimal return on the investment of changing this property? It's just random thoughts, and I hate to say it. Now, you have a big facility on Central Street. What's the possibility of expanding that instead of adding traffic someplace where there's a congestion area of concern already?
I don't think that
It's not pertinent.
that type of use has been studied to be put at that location. And essentially, I think the way that we're looking at this presentation, the business model of self-storage has really changed. It's not really, as I said, it's not really that outdoor type pull up and self-store. It's a whole different business model. And there are two different types of self-storage that are now starting. There are U-Box stores, which is more warehousing than it is self-storage. This is more of a consumer type idea that is being proposed, but in order for it to go at this particular location, the use would have to be allowed. So that's why the request, we're trying to keep it more so on the type of business use that would be placed at this location and other mixed-use 1 districts in the city. That's why the request was made.
When you bought the property, you knew that this type of a use was not allowed on that property, correct?
I believe that was the case, yes.
Yeah. It says,
And to your point about potential to the city, I think this type of building that they would build would probably be valued somewhere in the $8 million range, so the tax revenues would be rather considerable from that property.
okay, all right. Well, as I said, I have some concerns, but hopefully they'll be addressed later. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Pauline Cormier, then I'll go to David Cormier.
Attorney Campabasso, I know we went kind of the opposite end of what you're asking us to do here. Like, this is just a consideration of a zoning, changing the zoning to allow it and to adapt to what a new business plan would look like, what a new business zoning would look like. I know for myself, and I think it's the same for the council, it's much easier for us to kind of visualize what the potential could be. So I know we've gone off from just whether or not considering a change to the zoning or this, by allowing it by special permit. I think, like I said, I know for myself it's easier to kind of get a conceptual picture of what's going on. So I think that's what we've done. But I think we understand that this is a zoning issue first. The rest of this is going to go before the planning board. It's going to go, by special permit. It's going to go through everything else before it'll eventually come back to us. So I just wanted you to understand that, and I didn't mean to send this off the rails.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you very much. No, I just wanted to point out that, I think, we got a little off track talking about this one site. There's other sites primarily in Ward 3 that could be affected. There's a couple that you mentioned that maybe I'm not so worried about. And there's others that I do worry about. We could really change, really have an impact on certain areas of Central Street, I think you had mentioned. I'm not so sure that I'm worried about, Jungle Road, but certainly Elm Hill Avenue and Central Street is something I want to consider. And I think we're all caught up on, the plans, and the plans are for the planning board someday when and if we approve this. The fact of the matter is this, it affects the whole city. I think Councilor Frieda was the first one to mention that. So, there's a lot of things to consider, before we go ahead and do this and then find out that, somebody wants to put something that's not really a good idea, on Central Street. So that's my concern, and,
All set, Council?
yeah, thank you.
One final question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Attorney Campabasso, you referenced the traffic study.
Yep.
I have this feeling that this is a boilerplate traffic study that's done by the U-Haul Corporation. It's not site-specific, is it, to this property?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Public?
Anyone else? Let me go to the public if the council's good.
If I could for 1 second, Ms. Frieda, I'm a lifetime Leominster resident. I've worked for you all for 32 years, but I've lived here for 52 years. I cannot apologize for what happened back then because it was above my pay grade. I was a part-time employee, but I'm not leaving Leominster. I'm not leaving U-Haul. If I can make it up to Leominster, I'd love to be the person that can do that. Josh and myself both started at the Central Street location, so the Leominster store means a lot to us, and I can understand what your concerns was. It frustrates me myself. As far as when we purchased the site, we originally purchased it thinking a U-Box warehouse. U-Box is like a pod being delivered to your house, and you store your stuff. We put it in a warehouse, and we ship it to Florida or overseas, wherever you want it. Being from Leominster, I personally didn't think that a semi-trucks coming in and out of that lot was even feasible. So that's when we decided, well, let's see if we can go self-storage rather than going with the allowed warehouse site. So that's the, we didn't buy we didn't buy the site thinking that we were gonna pull something over somebody. We were gonna put a warehouse in here, but
And
that
that,
doesn't seem feasible.
and
All right, yes, Counselor, Mr. President.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I did serve on the zoning committee that did the revision back, I think, in 2011, 2012. And I know, Attorney Campabasso, you made the point that this is a business use and that MU1, of course, deals with certain kinds of businesses. But I can tell you that my memory, which is pretty good, was that the MU1 zone was created to attract high-quality type of businesses, and I say high-quality meaning high-quality in attracting good jobs. And I think there was a conscious decision not to permit this kind of use in MU1 because it wasn't thought that it would produce a number of quality jobs. And so there was a real reason behind the way. It wasn't, some kind of flippant error. It was a thought process at the time.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, I'm going to go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-25?
Good afternoon. John Souza, 347 Prospect Street, Chairman of the Planning Board. At our last meeting, there was a lot of discussion on this. And one of the things that came up says, let's look at the different sites and have a site walk, you might say, to look at all the sites. I did that this afternoon with Elizabeth and one of our other members, Dean Valier. When we looked at all the MU1 sites, there were a number of them that this could be accepted, no problem. This would be the least accepted if it was MU1. I just put that in. The second part is that just making this change tonight is not enough. We need a definition. I need to come up with criteria for the ordinances. So there's a whole package that we have to put together because the planning board needs something to look at. The criteria for a unit such as this. With this, it's just a change and there is no criteria. So it'd be very hard for us to make a decision one way or the other because it would be subjective. So what I want to do, what I really want to look at is this something we'll look at the city? Maybe. If it is, define and say, okay, planning board, in which we do, is create a new ordinance that addresses this, that is complete. So it gives us a definition, traffic requirements, and there's a lot of requirements that we could put into a definition or a layout for this kind of use of building. Is it a combination building? Is it storage units on the second and third and fourth floor and business on the first floor? So it would be a mixed-use type building. These are all possibilities, but we don't know today because we don't have a definition. We don't have guidelines to follow through. So with that, I just don't know where to go with this because I don't have the information to make a good judgment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-25? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-25? Seeing none, Mr. President, I will declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Attorney Campabasso and Mr. Peppin, and I forget the other gentleman's name, I'm sorry. Alexander, thank you. All right, now we're going to conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. We have one sign-up, Captain John Ferrier.
Good evening. I'm obviously here to speak on the appointment of Chief Ryan Malatis. In the interest of saving time, because I know everybody wants to, I spoke for a while when Ryan was made captain. Ryan was the first friend I ever made when I moved to Leominster. He remained a good friend, my entire life. Growing up together in the police department, he actually was my field training officer, and we were promoted a lot around each other. So we spent our entire careers together. It's been wonderful, and I've put my life in his hands and vice versa many times on the streets of this city. And there's nobody else in the world that I would trust with this job. So I'm very proud of the person that he's grown up to be, and that's a testament to his family that's here. And he's the best thing for us right now, and I have full faith that he is going to do an excellent job for a very long time.
Thank you,
That's it.
Captain. Your
Thank you.
comments are much appreciated. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to address the city council on a council agenda item this evening? Second time, any member of the public wish to address the council on an agenda item this evening? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Council President Petanza. Regarding the petition for the zoning change for U-Haul, if the council is so inclined to give it further time, we can try to get some additional information regarding a site plan. We could probably try to work a little more with the planning board, as Mr. Souza indicated. However, if the council is so inclined not to act in favor, I would ask you consider giving it leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Capobasso. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council on an agenda item? I declare the public forum closed. Moving on to communications from the mayor, starting with C-20.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested the following transfer within the Water Department to adjust the water debt service budget balance. Transfer of $2,000 from the water capital outlay to water debt service interest. Transfer of $2,531.26 from water capital outlay to water debt service interest. Transfer of $7,837.50 from water capital outlay to water debt service interest.
C-20 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
First time on the calendar, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well. C-20 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-21.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $1,500 be made to the Health Department salaries expense account, the same amount to be transferred from stabilization.
C-21 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
C-21 is first time on the calendar, regular course, and we did get a letter from the mayor. I guess there was a typo made. It was sent down as $1,500, and I'm going to make a motion that we amend this amount to $15,000.
Second by Pauline Cormier. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the amendment has been granted. And that's referred to, it's regular course, I'm sorry.
That is correct.
And,
President,
yes, Councilor Freeman.
just for the record, this is a two-third vote, not a majority vote.
Because
Coming
it's
out of
from the stabilization, right, okay. If the clerk will note that, please. All right, and we have a suspension of the rules with C-24, and I'll ask the Chairman of Finance to read that.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $6,885 be made to the city clerk postage expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. This just didn't make our agenda in time, and we are going to need this money in place so that we can notify all of the abutters for the MBTA zoning, so it would be my recommendation that we vote to suspend the rules and get this on the agenda.
All those in favor of suspending the rules, please recognize the usual manner. The rules are suspended. C24 is on the agenda, and I suggest
It's getting regular course, yes,
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President,
Yes,
again, for the
Councilor Frida.
record, this is also a two-thirds vote.
Correct, stabilization. That should be noted by the clerk. Moving on to appointments. Councilor Cormier, are you prepared to proceed?
Yes, C-22, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the appointment of the following: Maria Joffrian, 37 Richardson Street, Leominster, Mass., to the Disability Commission, term to expire April 15th, 2027. And this, I believe, is on for the first time. Regular case, please.
All right, very well. And so C22 has been given regular course. Moving on to C23.
That's you.
What's that?
It's under appointments, but it should be under finance.
Right. And Madam Clerk, if you could read that.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the tax classification hearing be held on November 25th, 2024.
C-23 will be given regular course, and we do need to set up a public hearing. The next meeting, I don't know what we have.
We're probably going to have Councilor Shalfo Zephyr's petition on for a public hearing. Want to put this on first?
I was going to say, how about, probably going to need 6 o'clock, you think, to start? This is usually 20 minutes.
I don't know what else we're going to have. We're going to have, Sergeant Robichaud has a number of traffic matters that we may want to put on for public hearing that night as well. So, okay, let's put it on for 6 o'clock.
Okay, so C-23 will be given regular course, and we will establish a public hearing for November, I don't know what the date is. 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
All those in favor of establishing a public hearing for C-23 on 11/25 at 6 p.m., please recognize the usual manner. That public hearing is established. Moving on to petitions, first time on the agenda, starting with 16-25.
Montezuma Regional Planning Commission, Glenn Eaton, Executive Director, requests to amend the Leominster zoning ordinance and map to create the multi-family overlay district in accordance with the MBTA Communities Act.
1625 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. This is first time on our agenda, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing, a joint public hearing, I guess.
That's going to be, that public hearing is going to have to occur on December 9th to make sure we have the appropriate notice to the public. And Councilor Angelini and I did discuss this previously. We're going to suggest a joint public hearing under Section 5 of Chapter 40A with the Planning Board for two reasons. One, if we refer this to the Planning Board for their public hearing separately, we're going to have a very difficult time meeting the time requirement by the end of the year, which is required under the statute. In addition to that, as noted by the suspension of the rules petition, or communication rather, the cost of advertising this is significant. And if we do it separately, we're going to repeat that expense double for the taxpayer. So we can do this with one notice with a joint meeting, which will save us almost $7,000. So with that said, what I'm suggesting, Mr. Chairman, is we schedule a public hearing, a joint public hearing with the Planning Board on 16-25 for December 9th. And let's do that one at 6 p.m. as well, if that's okay with you.
That sounds good.
All right, so all those in favor of establishing a joint public hearing on 16-25 with the Planning Board on 12/9 at 6 p.m., please recognize the usual manner. When opposed, then that may be done. Okay. Oh, okay, but we're going to move up the appointment as soon as we get to the regular calendar, which is usually unfortunately. Sorry, Chief. Moving on to 17-25.
Mark, excuse me.
I'm gonna have to poll my members on that. We'll make every effort to do that. okay, and I'll make the executive decision that it's okay. And as far as the planning board is concerned.
Yeah.
And I'll poll my members to make sure that we get every effort that we have that.
The director did indicate to me that
Yeah,
you
we've
could,
talked-
you could decide it yourself
Right,
to have the joint public hearing, but obviously we need people to show up,
right.
and
So we'll make
establish a
sure
quorum
we-
of your board. We don't really have much of a choice, so
No, I know.
I hope you should let them know that.
No, I agree. When we looked at the dates, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were like skinning a cat.
Exactly
Not gonna
right.
work.
yeah, exactly right.
As long as we have a quorum.
Okay. Yeah, well, so let's make sure we have a quorum, exactly right. All right, back to 17-25. Thank you, Mr. Souza.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 13, Section 13-44 of the revised ordinance entitled Same dash between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. is hereby amended by deleting the following text. Lancaster Street, north side, from in front of 488 Lancaster Street to and including the front of 508 Lancaster Street.
17-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing.
I'm going to suggest 11-25 at 6:15 p.m.
11:25 at 6:15 p.m. Thank you.
All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize usual manner. Anybody opposed? All right, that may be done. Moving on to 18-25.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-47 of the revised ordinance entitled Same at All Times Except Sunday is hereby amended by deleting the following text. No person shall park a vehicle on the east side of Lancaster Street from Viscaloid Avenue south to Howard Street for any longer than 2 hours on any day except Sunday.
18-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing.
11-25 at 6:16 p.m.
11:25, thank you.
All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize usual manner. That may be done. Moving on to 19-25.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 13, Section 13-34 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby amended by inserting the following text. Lancaster Street, north side, from in front of 488 Lancaster Street to and including the front of 516 Lancaster Street.
19-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Mr. President, once again, first time on the calendar, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing.
November 25th at 6:17 p.m.
Thank you.
All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize usual manner. That may be done. Moving on to 20-25.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-62.1 of the revised ordinance entitled Same 2 Hours is hereby amended by deleting the following text. Pleasant Street, west side, beginning at point 55 feet north of Adams Street, northerly for a distance of 313 feet, and replacing it with the following text. Pleasant Street, west side, beginning at a point of 90 feet north of Adams Street, northerly for a distance of 278 feet.
20-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Once again, first time on the calendar, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing.
November 25th, 6:18 p.m. All those in favor of establishing that public hearing date and time, please recognize usual manner. That may be done. Moving on to 21-24.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amend amending Chapter 13, of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section -1334 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby amended by inserting the following text. Pleasant Street, west side, beginning at the intersection of Adams Street, northerly for a distance of 90 feet.
21-24 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
First time on the calendar, regular course, and we need to establish a public hearing
That
date.
one's going to be November 25th at 6:19 PM. All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize usual manner. That may be done. Moving on to 22-25.
Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, request to amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 13, Section 13-34 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby amended by inserting the following text. Pleasant Street, west side from Adams Street to Pleasant Place.
Petition 22-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Once again, Mr. President, first time on the calendar, regular course, when we need a public hearing date established.
That will be 11/25 at 6:19 PM.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor of adopting
The
that?
last one was at 6:19.
6:20.
Oh, 6:20. Very good. All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize usual manner. That may be done. Now, C-19, Chief, I've come to two conclusions. One, you've waited a long time, and two, your traffic sergeant has been very busy.
And three, those two young ladies are incredible.
Yeah.
To be sitting this long, and actually looking like they were paying attention.
Let's get them home. Okay, Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Thank you,
Floor is
Mr.
yours.
President. This is C-19, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request the confirmation of the permanent appointment of Ryan Malatos to the position of Chief of Police for the City of Leominster. We had the opportunity to meet with the chief today. He comes highly recommended as far as his recommendation from the mayor's office, from his fellow officers, from his family, and those of us on the council that know him. Mr. President, it's my honor, and it would be my position to grant or to confirm the appointment of Chief Malatos, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Arndinger
I agree.
and Councilor Cormier.
I also agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation to confirm the appointment of Chief Malatos. This will be by roll call vote, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay?
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossi.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I shall be recorded as yay. Congratulations, Chief. And as was echoed, it's very great to see all these officers and brass in attendance this evening, as well as your family. All right, moving on to something a little more mundane, the financial report.
Yes, Mr. President, I will say that Officer Robichaud, I think he's trying to compete with all my stop sign petitions.
I was thinking the
that
very
that
same
I
thing.
put those years ago, but he's got a long way to go to do that. Matters before the City Council, the financial report. The stabilization fund for the City of Leominster, we began on July 1, 2024, with $22,927,553.81. We've earned $203,897.07 in interest, pending all of the what we've already spent and what's on our agendas at this meeting and a future meeting. If we spend all of what has been proposed so far, we will have spent $523,050.45, and that'll leave us a balance of $22,608,400.43. The opioid stabilization fund, we began with $518,703.20. We got a transfer in proceeds from the state of $172,743.90. And that leaves us with a balance of $691,447.10. And the capital stabilization fund, we began the fiscal year and we have not made any changes to that. That has a balance of $2,193,191.62. And that is the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to matters before finance, starting with C-17.
Yes, Mr. President, C-17, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor requests an appropriation of C-17, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor requests an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Police Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. We did get from, at the time, Acting Chief Malatis, now Chief Malatis, on 10/21/2024. We got a letter stating that over the last 4 months, our overtime budget has been depleted from contractual obligations for time off, city events, and investigations. I would also like to effectively forecast overtime during the upcoming holiday season. As a result, I request $250,000 in an additional overtime. So I think this speaks for itself, and hopefully we won't see much more overtime until long after the first of the year. It would be my recommendation that we grant C-17, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
Now I know why he left so quickly. I'll make it unanimous.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-17. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-17, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-17 is granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yep. Ordered that the sum of $250,000 be made to the Police Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-18.
C-18, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor requests that an appropriation of $75,000 be made to the ALS ambulance overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. There is an attached letter here dated October 18th, 2024 from Chief Sidlow. The fire department requested the sum of $75,000 for overtime costs for paramedics. I am requesting the amount to be transferred at the discretion of the comptroller's office. The necessity for the supplement is due to vacation, sick, and personal leave, along with operational costs associated with filling the vacancy of an 8th paramedic. Thank you for your continued support. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact my office. As most people know, there are technically 8 slots for paramedics. They have only hired 7. There's only 7 that work for the city. So it's a decision that the mayor and the finance team have made, that they hire overtime for the 8th, and then when someone's out sick or vacation or other things, they need to fill those shifts as well. So I think this is customary, and it's a way we're going to do business. From what I'm understanding, for the foreseeable future, it would be my recommendation that we grant C-18, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I'm in agreement as well.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-18. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-18, please recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-18 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $75,000 be made to the ALS ambulance overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting the order, adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to legal affairs and 1025, is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. 1025, again, is Peter A. Campobasso, Esquire, on behalf of 5 SAC Self-Storage Corporation. Request to amend Section 22-17, underlying districts table of uses of the Leominster zoning ordinance under the business uses table of uses in the multi-use 1 MU1 underlying zoning district, and change the self-storage facility use from N, no, not allowed, to either Y, allowed by right, or SPPB, planning board special permit required. According to the Leominster zoning ordinance, self-storage in in categorized, I think it should be is, but in categorized as a business use, but is only allowed in the industrial zoning district. Mr. President, we did conduct a public hearing early this evening. We heard testimony from the applicant and his legal counsel. I thought it was a very informative discussion. Some counselors brought up some very valid points. I can tell you from my past experience, you know, I know that like every 10 years we do this citywide zoning review, and I can remember attending public hearings and neighborhood meetings and filling out questionnaires. And, you know, we go through all this work and we try to find the appropriate uses for these pieces of land. And I think it's really important for us as a council and us as a city to try to stick to some of these decisions that we invest an awful lot of money and time in. And I have a really difficult time changing established zoning. It would have to be a tremendous value, a tremendous benefit to the people of Leominster before I would even consider it. I can tell you, I know after the public hearing was closed, the applicant's attorney asked that you know, perhaps we give this further time. I did close the public hearing, so I'm not going to recommend further time. He also did sort of say, I think you know, I have no idea what the ultimate vote would be, so I don't know if it's going to pass or fail. Therefore, I feel very reluctant to give it leave to withdraw. I mean, we were afforded a public hearing. I think it's a terrible precedent to set. People come in here for zoning hearings, and maybe they feel that it's not going as well as they anticipate, and they ask for leave to withdraw. So I'm not going to recommend leave to withdraw on this either. I'm going to recommend a denial, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee, Mr. President.
Councilor Tosi?
I disagree. I would like to give it further time.
All right, so, and Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I have to say that I don't know that I would give it further time, but I would consider giving it leave to withdraw. I think it's something that we brought up some very good points tonight. It's something that I know that I will look into a little bit further. I think we could have used a little more input from planning. So it would be my position. I would allow, I would recommend leave to withdraw.
The planning chairman did indicate that, you know, from his perspective, this thing wasn't really ripe, despite their letter. So I don't know. I mean, we're in this unique position where we have 3 different points of view.
Do you need a recommendation from the floor?
Yeah, we could get a recommendation from the floor.
Okay.
You wanna give it?
I'm going to recommend we give it leave to withdraw without prejudice.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor, well, I'm going to do discussion, exactly. So the recommendation before the council stands as leave to withdraw. And Councilor Cormier, I recognize you first.
Thank you very much. You know, I listened attentively to what the petitioners said. You know, I'm not so sure that I want to, you know, kill this dead and not give them the opportunity to work with the planning board and come back. You know, there's certainly some areas where this may work, and there's other areas that, you know, concern me. Unfortunately, you know, we can't spot zone. We all know that. It's, you know, we have to, it affects the whole city. I haven't really studied the intersection too well where they want to, you know, where this particular facility that, you know, why they're changing the ordinance. It's not my ward. But there's certainly some areas in Ward 3 that, you know, would concern me and I need some more information about. But also, Mr. President, you know, one of the first, actually the very first time as a city councilor back 2 days after Inauguration Day in 2010, I came and sat in my chair here before I even had a city council meeting, and I was on the president's special zoning committee, and we had our first meeting. And I can tell you that it was very dry, and I was trying to stay awake. And I know you were there. You weren't a councilor at the time, but you were doing some consulting
What are
work
you
as an
trying to say?
attorney. And so I,
Go through all the details, I hope.
so if you know, are saying that this originally wasn't, it was thought of, but we didn't think it was a good idea, I certainly take that into account as well. I'm glad you remembered that. But I still want to give them an opportunity, I think, just to really present their, work with the planning board, with the planning director and the chairman, and give them one more opportunity to see if there's something they can work out. I'm not too crazy about it, but I'll give them a chance, and that's the reason for my leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Frida?
At this point, I clearly don't like this project. I did ask for a reason to get some type of a plan, but I don't believe we can give it further time. I think the chairman is right because the hearing is closed. But I don't have a problem giving it leave to withdraw without prejudice and giving them the opportunity to have the discussion with planning, come back to us and see what it looks like.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Okay, I'll do this by roll call vote. So the yay vote is to give it leave to withdraw without prejudice. Starting with Councilor David Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Nay.
Councilor Tossi.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I'll be recorded as yay, so the recommendation passes by a vote of 8-1. All right, moving on to, well, we did Ways and Means. Moving on to city property, and 14-25, is the chairman ready to report?
Thank you, Mr. President. I am. This was a, we had a public hearing earlier this evening, and no one spoke in favor or against this petition. And do I have to read the petition again?
Yes, please.
Yes, so sorry about
Yeah.
that. All right. Petition 1425, Thomas F. Ardinger, Council at Large, on behalf of the petitioners below, request a sidewalk on the easterly side of Howard Street between Lancaster Street and Florence Street. And we had requested a letter from the DPW, and we got that back, and it was dated, let's see, when was it dated? October 21st, and the DPW directors wrote back, Dear Elizabeth, the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the petition to construct a sidewalk on the easterly side of Howard Street between Lancaster Street and Florence Street, and offers the following comments. The DPW has estimated that the cost of the sidewalk, concrete with granite curbing, would be $185,000. This does not include retaining walls, utility pole locations, catch basin locations, and tree removal. Please let us know if you have any questions. Signed, Raymond Racine, DPW Director. Based on that letter and the request by the petitioners, I would like to ask this to be given leave to withdraw without prejudice. And would you check with the other members of the committee?
Very well. Councilor Robbins?
I'm in agreement.
Okay, Councilor Tossi?
I also agree.
So the unanimous recommendation of the City Property Committee is to give 14-25 leave to withdraw without prejudice. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving 14-25 leave to withdraw without prejudice, please recognize the usual manner. Anybody opposed? The petition is given leave to withdraw without prejudice by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to the Public Safety Committee, is the chairwoman ready to report?
Yes, I am. This is a petition 11-25, Claire Frida, Councilor at Large. Request on behalf of Paul and Lisa Gove of Gove Farm. Establish a 25 or 30 mile per hour speed zone on Mechanic Street from the bridge at Johnny Rowe Park to the Lancaster Town Line. Speed to be determined by the Leominster Traffic Department within the Police Department. So we had a continued public hearing earlier this evening. We heard from the Leominster Police Department's Traffic Officer, Sergeant Robershad, who has done an awful lot of very detailed and fine work for this by providing data from that area. We kept the public hearing open because we still have a few questions for Sergeant Robichaud, and he will get that information and get back to us. So my, at this point, what I would recommend is further time, and I ask that you check with my committee.
Very well. Councilor Angelini?
I would agree.
Further time?
Further
Okay.
time.
Councilor Frida?
I agree.
All right, so the recommendation is for 11:25, a unanimous recommendation is further time and a continued public
Public hearing
hearing,
at-
which would be November 25th,
Yeah,
Counselor?
yeah.
At 6:21.
6:21, okay?
Yeah, and we're going to want to warm up with a lot of traffic stuff before we get to this one.
Okay, sounds good.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Okay, so that's further time with a continued public hearing, 11:25 at 6:21 PM. We don't have any new business listed. Council Frida?
Just a couple things. Yesterday, we had the Veterans Program, and I just would like to publicly thank the Life Care Center. They have traditionally, for the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 events for the veterans, have put on a full turkey and ham dinner, and, you know, have fed a lot of people, and really had a community activity. The place was full yesterday, so I just think thank you to the Life Care Center is important on that. I also would like to say, after many years of trying to get Beth Avenue on the list for repair because it was really bad, the mayor and the DPW have done that in the past month. Also, I was asked to speak to Troop 16 Scouts at the Methodist Church for working on their citizenship badge. So I told them that I would ask if they could, I didn't think the girls were going to be here tonight, they could come in and do the pledge at the next meeting.
Of course.
So that'd be Troop 16 on 11/28.
Very well.
Okay,
11:25.
25.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Moving on to old business. Counselor Angelini, second reading of an ordinance.
Mr. President, it would be my distinct pleasure to bring up the last piece of business on our agenda this evening. I can assure you. All right, this is formally petition 7-25, and it is indeed the second reading of an ordinance. Be it ordained, the year 2024, an ordinance. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Amending Chapter 22 of the revised ordinances entitled Zoning. Section 22-4 of the revised ordinances entitled Definitions is hereby amended by inserting the following. Upper story dwelling units. One or more dwelling units located in the same building as and on the stories above a first floor non-residential use. And further, by amending Section 22-17 entitled Underlying Districts Table of Uses by adding the following. And then we have language in the chart that will be reflected in our zoning book. It's headline, top line, residential uses. And of course, the heading is RR, RA, RB, RC, BA, BB, C, I, MU1, MU2, and V. And I will read upper story dwelling units. N for RR, N for RA, N for RB, SPBB, Special Permit Planning Board for Resident C, yes in BA, a Y in BB, a no in C, a no in I, a no in MU1, Special Permit from the Planning Board in MU2, and yes in the Village District. Then we go 1 to 4 units, upper story dwelling units, 5 or more dwelling units. And that would be RR, no, RA, no, RB, no, RC, no, BA, site plan approval, BB, site plan approval, C, no, I, no, MU1, no, In MU2, special permit of the planning board, and in the village district, it would be site plan approval. And further, by amending section 22-18 entitled Overlay Districts Table of Uses by adding the following. Residential uses, upper story dwelling units, 1 to 4 units. DO is a site plan approval, MSO is UCO is U, HCO is U. Upper story dwelling units, 5 or more. DO, special permit planning board, MSOU, UCOU, HCOU, and again, this document is available at the clerk's office for anyone that wishes to review it. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the second reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to poll the distinguished members of the Legal Affairs
It'd be
Committee.
my pleasure. Councilor Tossy
Can you repeat what the letter you just read? I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I will make it unanimous.
Okay, so this is actually going to be by roll call vote, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossy.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
Now this should be recorded as yay. The second reading is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Does anybody have anything for the community calendar? Councilor Arndinger.
I'd like to remind everybody that on Sunday, November 24th, from 8 to 11 a.m., the Rotary Clubs, Pittsburgh and Leominster, are holding their annual breakfast for the bands. And it's usually very well attended. And if anybody would like tickets, they can get them at the high school or from a band member or from the mayor's office.
Very well. A great event every year. Councilor David Cormier.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow, November 13th, at, I just want to double check, 4 p.m., there's going to be a meeting on a site visit on Tanzio Road at the entrance to the site at 200 Tanzio Road. There is a facility there that's looking to expand, and then it's going to be followed up at 6 p.m. tomorrow night at the Franco-American War Veterans Function Hall, 300 Water Street, about the proposal to expand that facility that deals with a lot of the trash and whatnot. So I just wanted to publicly let everyone know that that meeting is taking place tomorrow.
All right, very well. Anybody else? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Through the chair to the Ward 3 Council, who's calling that meeting?
That is put on by
Yes.
MEPA, MEPA.
Yeah.
It's a state agency. Yep.
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 Okay, thank you. And then one other question for Councilor Arndinger. Where is the breakfast this year? Is it in
Leominster High School.
It is in Leominster, I thought so. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
The new cafeteria.
All right. Anybody else? Yes, Councilor
On
Frida?
this, okay, I just want, do we have any KP invoices?
I think one was one in the last packet, right?
We haven't
The
gotten
last
to the
packet.
last.
There was about 10 pages worth in the packet for the meeting before.
Really that many?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, at least. Okay, anyone else? On Council Shalfo Zephyr? Before we adjourn. I will point out that 8:23, for those of us who've been around a while in city government, this is like pretty early back compared to the old days. But on Tuesday, if anybody wants to hear me drone on longer, the 19th at 7 p.m., Leominster Historical Society, I'm presenting my new book there, Enlightenment and Enchantment, Two Men Who Shaped American Culture. It's two of my favorite topics, Benjamin Franklin and Walt Disney, compared and sort of reviewed. Again, free to the public, Tuesday the 19th at 7 p.m. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Council Shalfo Zephyr, Council Cormier, all in favor, please indicate usual manner. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.